Hi everybody, it's Sally here and I'm back in my LK150 introductory series to do video number 5, which will be about increasing and decreasing. So I've got a bit of red yarn on the machine today. I've just cast on and knit a few rows so that we can get straight into the increasing decreasing part. And I will do increases first and then decreases. The simplest way of making an increase on the edge of your garment is literally to pull a needle forward into working position at the edge of the knitting, and you can do this on both sides. So I pulled one needle forward on each side to B and carry on knitting. And it's made a simple increase. Now it will make a loop of yarn on the edge of the work, which I think you should be able to see me indicating there with my transfer tool. But it was exactly what I was using when I was using the cast on rag the other day. These are simple increases, making these loops on the edge of the work here. So there are times when you want to use this method, like specifically making a cast on rag. But if you don't want a visible line of increases in your knitting, as you can see, apart from the very edge of it, there's nothing to show the increasing. The simple increase is perfectly okay, and obviously in a garment it will be absorbed into the seam and you won't even see that loop. But if you don't want the loop but still want a simple increase, you can move the edge needle out by one and then pick up the heel stitch, which is this purl bump from the stitch below, and put onto that empty needle. That's a simple increase, and again you can do this on both sides at the same time. You don't have to do it only on one side in one row, then the next side on the next row. You can do both sides on the same row, meaning that you don't have to stop knitting quite so frequently. And carry on knitting. Or the last method of doing an increase is fully fashioned. And fully fashioned gives a very visible increase slash decrease, depending on which you're doing, which if I show you the sleeve of this sweater that I've knitted, you should be able to see very clearly that line on the underseam of the sleeve where the fully fashioned increases are very obvious. So to do a fully fashioned, you either use your 3-prong or your 2-prong tool. Take the outer 3 or 2 stitches off their needles, move them out by one and replace them. And again, you'd fill that gap picking up the heel stitch, putting it onto the empty needle. You can do this on both sides at once. So just move it out, pick up the heel stitch and fill in the gap. I'll do that one again. Fully fashioned increasing and decreasing does look very effective where you want a nice visible line to the seam, like on raglan shoulders and things that you're knitting in sections, maybe like a poncho. It can look very effective when you join the pieces, and because the increase has taken place several stitches in from the edge, it still gives you a lovely neat edge that you can seam with, and you can carry on doing mattress stitch on a fully fashioned increase decrease edge. There we go. So those are obviously single increases at the edge of the work. To do a multiple increase, you actually do an E-wrap cast on the same way as I showed you in the cast on video. So if I pull out an extra 5 needles on this side and pull some slack down in the yarn, and then E-wrap around these empty needles. Make sure the slack is coming back up through the overhead feeder. Oops. And knit across. Oh, that's my silly fault. I'd got my Russell lever set at the wrong setting and the needle's obviously out in D. Let me just unravel this row. Caught it with my hand. There we go. So the great advantage about this little plastic bed machine, it's really easy to take the carriage off and move it from side to side. So I can put that back where it was to begin with. Make sure both my Russell levers are on 2, because I've got these needles out to D, and knit that row down. That's better. And then on the next row, I pull those needles out to D position again to make sure that they wouldn't knit back. I do that for a couple of rows until you can get a weight on it. And then this is how you do it on the opposite side. Again, pull the slack down and E-wrap out towards the carriage. Whoops. Never find it as easy to do on this side because I'm right-handed, but there we go. Again, make sure the Russell levers are on 2 and knit back. And keep pulling the multiple increased needles out for a couple of rows. But once the knitting is established, you can crack on and then get some weights on those extra stitches. And there is your multiple increase. So decreasing, very, very simple. Again, you can do a simple decrease literally by moving the outer stitch in one. Again, you can do this on both sides at the same time. And knit. Or again, you can do fully fashioned by moving 3 in by 1. And I'll just do that one again. Take the 3 outer ones off, move them in 1. So you're pulling 2 needles back out to hang the 2 edge stitches. And so that is fully fashioned decrease. Now to make a multiple decrease, much like the multiple increase, you're using casting off instead of casting on. And so you need to take the edge stitch off, transfer it to its neighbour, and pull the needle forward, put the yarn in the loop, in the hook, and pull it back through the 2 loops that are on the needle. And pull it back a good way to make that stitch on there quite loose, because you don't want to be pulling this cast off edge tight. Transfer to the neighbour, pull it out, yarn in the hook, and pull back a good way to make a nice big stitch on there. Well, I've forgotten how many I've done, 4 or 5, but that's how you do a multiple decrease. And you can only do this on the carriage side again, same with the multiple increase. And knit across, and then we'll do it on this side. Take the edge stitch off, transfer it to its neighbour, pull it out, put the yarn in the hook and pull through, and pull it back a good way to make a nice big loop. I don't know if you can see that terribly clearly on this side. As you can see, I've pulled that stitch back a good way to make a nice big loop on there. Because you don't want your cast off edge to be pulling too tightly. Take that one off, transfer it to its neighbour, yarn in the hook, pull it back, nice big loose stitch, transfer to its neighbour, yarn in the hook, pull back, and there you go. Let's do another one. There we go. And if you pulled slack down to do this, make sure you pull it back up through the overhead mask again so that your overhead tension is maintained for your subsequent knitting, and knit across. So that's it. That covers multiple increasing and multiple decreasing, simple increase and decrease, and fully fashioned increase and decrease.